This is lecture 5.2, in which we're going to be talking about Weberian theory. We're continuing our conversation about groups, but this time we're specifically focusing on the work of Max Weber. Very, very specifically, we're talking about his theories on bureaucracy and leadership. So, the contributions of Weber cannot be understated in sociology, and two areas in which he was particularly influential was in the discussion of bureaucracy and of leadership. Now, it should be stated that sociologists very much, I think it's safe to say, have a much deeper understanding of Weber's theories than people in other disciplines. I have heard economists, I have heard business academics sometimes make certain assertions about Weber's ideas, and I have seen many of those being incorrect. So I guess what I'm telling you is that in terms of studying this material, be very careful. You're sticking with sociological sources, and it is an area also to just re-emphasize. Stick with your textbook, stick with our course materials regarding this material. So, Weber pioneered the sociological research on bureaucracy. He didn't invent the bureaucracy. He studied it in its first and most complex way. A bureaucracy is defined as a type of secondary group designed to perform tasks efficiently. So as a secondary group, it exists to serve a purpose, and as a bureaucracy, it is designed to be efficient. Now, you may say, but bureaucracies suck. Bureaucracies are inefficient, they never work, they're terrible. Well, that's a malfunctioning bureaucracy. And the reason why malfunctioning bureaucracies are so inefficient is because the same components that lead to them being efficient can also backfire wildly. And this was of great interest to Weber. According to Weber, all bureaucracies have 6 common traits that lead to both efficiency and inefficiency. These traits are rules and regulations, impersonality, formal written communication, specialization, technical competence, and hierarchy. And I'll define those a little bit better on the following slides. And each of those common traits may either contribute to efficiency, what Weber would call in the ideal type, the way it's intended to be, ideally, right? Or it can hinder efficiency. And when it does hinder efficiency, that is often what we call the real type, the way it actually exists in the world. It could function in the world too, but when things malfunction, it's not because that was ideal, but rather because it was the real type. So here we have 3 of those six categories. First, we have rules and regulations. There are, within a bureaucracy, rules for everything. That can be good in terms of efficiency in that everyone knows what to do, right? If there is a rule for a given thing, then we know what to do in that situation. And that's why bureaucracies have so many rules, is because they're trying to figure out what to do in every single situation to be efficient. However, if there is no rule, that can create a great deal of inefficiency in bureaucracies and a lack of ability to make decisions, because decisions within bureaucracies are typically based on, well, what is the rule? Impersonality, then, is the second of our qualities. There are no favors for friends or relatives in a functioning bureaucracy. This can be good in that it treats everybody equally. The CEO is not just hiring their son because they're their son. They are hiring a qualified IT professional. That can be good. However, it can be bad because what if one of your co-workers or employees or whatever needs a little extra special help? Maybe their house burnt down. Maybe they have cancer. Maybe they have a severe psychological issue that is short-term, but definitely real. That then the inability to help those people as they have specific needs can lead to a bureaucracy being quite ugly. Formal written communication is our next quality. In Weber's day, remember the 1920s, everything had to have a paper trail, right? There is a old perception that in bureaucracies, everything has to be filled out in triplicate. And before the modern era, that was true. That you fill out the same form 3 times and you give it to those people that need it. We don't need to do that now in the modern era. We have electronic paper trails, right? But within bureaucracies, there are forms to fill out computers, there are e-signed documents, there are all of these electronic email chains, all that stuff. And the purpose for that is that there need to be records for everything, so that if things break down, if communication in the bureaucracy gets confused, if someone makes a mistake, we can figure out where it went wrong. And that can be good. However, what if in that record keeping, in sending those emails upon emails upon emails, you're actually wasting people's time and it doesn't actually need to be written down? That can contribute to inefficiency. 3 more traits here. Specialization. Jobs are highly specific in a bureaucracy. This can be good in that people get to be very good at their jobs. I am a sociology instructor. I am not a chemistry instructor. I am not a researcher. I am not somebody that works in administration. And I think I'm pretty good at teaching. I'm not good at those other things because I don't have practice doing those other things. I'm good at doing this job that I do, and I'll talk about anyway. In the bad element there is, what if we can't find a person to do a given job, right? What if somebody becomes so specific at doing that specific job that really they're the only person that could do that job, and then they up and left, or they whatever. That can lead to holes in your organization that can be quite damaging. Technical competence then. Within a bureaucracy, all jobs are filled by qualifications. We look at resumes to figure out how to hire people. We say, okay, you have a bachelor's degree, or you have a master's degree, or you've been in this field X years. And by doing that, we use those qualifications to fill jobs easier, because we believe that if you graduate with a college degree, then that means you know how to write, you have a certain degree of mathematical knowledge, you know how to do all these sorts of things that we anticipate a good worker at our organization needs to do. Great. It could be bad, though, that what if those qualifications don't really mean anything, right? What if somebody cheated their way through college? What if somebody's lying about their qualifications, right? And in those cases, then, you can get a worker in a situation that is not actually able to do the job. That can harm the organization itself. Hierarchy, then. And in hierarchy, and we don't always think of hierarchy as a good thing, but in terms of structures of bureaucracies, it can be efficient. Everybody has a boss in a hierarchy. So, and even the CEO has the boss of a board of directors often. So, this works in that you know who to ask questions to. You know who is your direct supervisor. You know who has the information that you need, and that can be efficient. But what if your boss isn't good at their job, right? What if your boss, it's often said, rose to the level of their incompetence, right? Which I've had some bosses like that. None right now, and I'm very grateful for that. But what if your boss isn't good at their job? What if the hierarchy of your organization is too complex and you have like 7 bosses and you don't know who to ask? Those can both contribute to inefficiency greatly. Now let's talk about leadership. This is the other great contribution Weber made to the study of the sociology of groups. So Weber identified three types of authority found in organizations, and these each will also have their own slides. These are traditional authority, legal rational authority, sometimes that's called rational legal authority, it's the same thing, and charismatic authority. It should be noted that authority may be derived from multiple types. So you could be a legal rational authority figure and also a charismatic authority figure, for example. And there are other types of leadership listed in your textbooks. In your textbook, this specifically is talking about Weberian theory, though. Traditional authority, then, is the authority based on custom, on birthright, or on divine right. So remember, Weber lived in the early 20th century in Europe. Traditionally, from his perspective, this is one generation after the kings and queens of an aristocracy in Europe were replaced by democracies. So if you talk about tradition in that era, often people thought of kings and queens and stuff like that. And that's what we're talking about here. And then additionally, within those parts of the world that have or have had kings and queens, there is a heavy element of tradition there. So what is this authority based on? This authority is based on the fact that my father was king before me, his father was king before him, and we are all from this line of this family where this is where the king is chosen from. And thus, I, as the king, have that authority. And often, traditional authority is tied back to some religious belief at one time or another. That's not always the case, but it's often the case in these types of societies. And it should be noted that these types of societies were far more common in the pre-industrial era prior to, let's say, 1800 or so. Legal rational authority figures, then, are much more common in modern societies. This is authority based on laws, rules, and procedures. So this is the leadership type most commonly found in bureaucracies. As I said, it's the most common type found in our society. Examples of leadership, of legal rational authority figures then, are elected officials. So to be an elected official, you need to fall into certain categorizations, right? So you have to, at the bare minimum, fill out the paperwork to be in the election. Most elected officials have to be above a certain age. Most elected officials have to often have residency in that area. In the case of the President of the United States, the President of the United States needs to be a native-born citizen of the United States. That is a qualification of that leadership. So they follow rules to do that thing. Managers in a corporation are like primo examples of legal rational authority figures. The manager did everything they needed to do, and because they did that, they were picked by someone higher up to be in a position of authority, and they continue to have that authority as long as they follow all the rules and regulations. Great example of a legal rational authority figure. But also an owner of a business in the United States. You follow the rules, you continue to pay your taxes, you maintain all your payments, you follow the law. Well, then, according to the rules of our society, you are able to own that business and you are a legal rational authority figure. And then charismatic authority figures. This is the authority type that is based on perception of the remarkable personal qualities of a leader. This type of leadership can be highly unstable because it is based on the individual's power of personality. Thus, if the charismatic leader is defamed, people don't like them anymore, maybe the charismatic leader is assassinated in the case of a dictator, then the leadership structure falls apart because that charismatic leader is taken out of the equation. So that can be a really unbalanced situation. Examples of charismatic authority figures can include dictators, can include revolutionaries, can include certain religious figures, charismatic authority figures, but it also can include elected officials as well, because elected officials not only have to follow the rules to be in the election, but they also have to convince people that they are good for their job. And often in our democracies, we choose people that we like as opposed to maybe the person that is the best qualified for the job. That's one of the unfortunate side effects of democracy. Well, in that way, then, elected officials can also be charismatic authority figures. Okay, that is it for this lecture. And if you have any questions on that, just let me know. Thanks.